Please welcome our next panel on leading with authenticity. Gail Moody-Byrd, Chief Marketing Officer, Noodle.ai, Ritu Bhasin, Speaker, Author, Leadership and Inclusion Specialist, Bhasin Consulting Incorporated, and Sarah Franklin, EVP and GM Trailhead, Salesforce. Moderated by Andrea Leszek, EVP and COO, Technology, Salesforce.
All right, thank you. I'm so excited to be here with these three amazing women. But let's just start off by getting to know our panelists. Could each of you introduce yourselves and share just a little bit about your background?
Right. Hi there. My name's Gail Moody-Byrd. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer of Noodle.ai, which is a startup. And just a moment on Noodle. Noodle is an artificial intelligence company that provides leading-edge solutions to manufacturing and supply chain. And we also have a not-so-secret plan to create a world without waste. In addition to being at Noodle, I have been in technology since 2001. I was born in Ohio. That's something that we have in common. Grew up, went to Spelman, went to Harvard Business School, worked in New York, and found my way to tech marketing a while ago. So I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. Great. Thanks, Gail.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ritu Bhasin. I did not grow up in Ohio. I grew up in Toronto, Canada, which is where I'm from and where I live. But I spent a lot of time in Ohio because I had relatives there. Truckloads of time in Ohio. So I am a speaker, an author, and consultant in the area of equity, diversity, and inclusion. And my deep passion is for authenticity, having written a book called The Authenticity Principle. I'm deeply committed to creating a world where everyone feels more included and empowered to be who they are. And really, this largely stems from my own experiences, which I'm sure I'll have an opportunity to share in today's discussion. As a woman of color in particular, I feel like the greatest gift I have given myself is the gift of authenticity.
Awesome. Sarah.
And hello, everybody. My name is Sarah Franklin, and I am the EVP and General Manager of Trailhead and our platform at Salesforce. And have been at this amazing company for 12 years now, which is incredible. And on a different side from just being a woman in technology, also a mother of 2 daughters and super passionate about creating a future together that we can be proud of for them.
Awesome. Well, today we're here to talk about leading authentically, and this is not always easy, as you know, as we talked a little bit about before the session. Can each of you share an example of when you felt like you couldn't be your full authentic self, and how did you overcome that? Why don't we start down with Sarah?
Oh, start with me. So people that know me know that I love to dress a little bit eclectically and wear funky shoes and jewelry. And I was told at one point in my career that I should dress differently and that I looked too young, which I would wish now, people with the wrinkles and everything. But that was something where I just said, you know what, I'm going to show up and I'm going to be who I am. I'm going to dress how I want to dress. I'm going to be who I am. And I'm going to bring the fun, bring the energy. And it was something that it was hard to do because I thought I had to, dress like a man to be successful. And turns out you don't.
What about you, Ritu?
So I have the quintessential story of growing up in a household led by immigrant parents. So my parents are from India, and they immigrated to Canada 50 years ago. And quintessential story, like really working class at the beginning, lower middle class. Growing up, money was scarce, and my parents were just really frugal. I made the decision to enter into the most high-conforming corporate culture when I decided to become a lawyer in Canada. And I spent 10 years on our Bay Street, which is akin to your Wall Street, in a very white male-dominated elitist profession where having money and coming from money was the norm, but that was not my norm. And I can tell you for the 10 years I spent on Bay Street as a lawyer and then doing talent management in the legal profession, I masked and I covered and I minimized that I grew up not fancy. And I did my best to signal to people, no, I grew up fancy just like you, and I know how to use 14 pieces of cutlery, and I I yachted and sailed. No, I didn't. And all of that other fancy stuff. And it wasn't until I left Bay Street 10 years ago to start my own diversity consulting practice where I finally exhaled, and now I openly talk about how I grew up in a household where we reused everything. Like, immigrants are the original environmentalists, and so are poor people, where it's like we reused foil, Ziploc bags, sour cream containers as Tupperware. We still do. I still do. If you check my Insta stories, like, I'm constantly posting about this. But I never felt comfortable sharing this because when I was in corporate culture, I felt like if I tell you that this came from that, will you still like me? Will you still accept me? And now I'm like, to hell with that. This does come from that, and ain't it great?
Yeah, yeah.
That's so funny that you mentioned finance, because early in my career, I was in banking, and I had a summer internship at Goldman Sachs, so our Wall Street. And so my summer internship was in sales and trading. And oh boy, was that a boys' club and a foreign environment. So you were either one of the bros or you were a really sexy babe. And I was neither of those. So just being a part of the culture was how bro-ish could you be or how sexy could you be? And so I got through the summer, and it was really interesting, but what it did and how I reacted to that was I went back to business school my second year, and I completely changed my emphasis and decided that what I really liked was the retail industry, something that was fun, something that involved customers, something that was exciting. And so I had to go through that experience of being uncomfortable to really find a place in an industry where I could be authentic.
So when, just to build on that maybe a little bit more, I learned that you grew up in Ohio and went to a Catholic school, all white, and then you intentionally went to college at Spelman, which is a historically black college. And how did those experiences influence your career? Did that lead you to banking? Like, how did that influence you?
Yeah, it's an interesting story. So I grew up in Ohio in a fairly industrial area. And so I went to a parochial school, Catholic school for high school, because the education was superior at the time. And but it was a very ethnically polarized environment. And so I really wanted to seek for my college experience something that was going to be nurturing, that was going to be self-reflective, where I could see myself mirrored in society. And so I went to Spelman. And being in Spelman at the time I was there, it was the quintessential HBCU experience. I went to school with Spike Lee. I went to school with Martin Luther King's son. I mean, it was sort of an immersion, not only in our culture, but just in an environment where I could gain confidence and have my story about why I was special, why I was different. And so what that did was really propel me into the kind of career that I've had. I think if I had gone to a majority institution, I could have gotten lost, or I may have never gained the confidence that I gained at a place like Spelman. And so HBCUs do have a role in terms of the developmental growth of young people, because you come out of there and you're just on fire. So it was great for me.
That's great. And I think the same can be true of some all-girls schools and experiences that people have had at
Absolutely.
those. Maybe you can tell us Spike Lee stories later.
I will. I'll save those.
So Ritu, you have written this book, The Authenticity Principle, Resist conformity, embrace differences, and transform how you live, work, and lead. So what inspired you to write this book, and what was the biggest lesson that you've learned in doing so?
Yeah. So what inspired me to write the book is, I think, a few things. First of all, my own need to heal from constantly internalizing messages that what makes me different as based on my gender, my ethnoculture, my race, my religion, my lack of class privilege as a child, made me less worthy, and wanting to heal the woundedness around that. But also in discovering that living more as who I am was literally transforming my life and setting me free. And seeing this beautiful transition happen in my own life, I wanted to share this with others. So I spend most of my time working in corporate corporate cultures, teaching people who come from underrepresented or marginalized communities about how to thrive and flourish. And then I also spend a lot of time teaching homogeneous leadership groups around how you have power and privilege within an organization. You have your hands on the lever of power and privilege. What are you going to do, or how do you go about creating cultures where more of us can be who we really are? And it transformed my life, and this is what I wanted to share for others. And, you know, I mentioned, actually, Gail, a lot of what you've just shared resonated with me. I am a survivor of relentless, traumatic childhood racist bullying, and I literally have spent hours and hours in therapy over the last 20 years and doing extensive self-work to heal from the tremendous trauma that arose from that, those experiences. And then I entered into this corporate culture of high conformity. And to say that I was a young brown girl navigating through corporate culture, business culture, in a lost and confused way would be an understatement. And doing this therapy work, doing my self-love work, healing work, and then committing to a life of authenticity transformed my life. And this is what I want to bring to others. And there are two key things I found based on my work and my research and then writing this book. First of all, that the number one reason that most of us in workplace culture, we push down our differences, it's the fear of bias. It's the, if I tell you who I really actually want to love, or if I tell you what I really do on evenings or weekends, or that I make goat curry in vats of stainless steel in the backyard so we won't sneak up the curtains, which is what we do as brown folk, you'll think I'm strange and weird, so I'll just tell you I had a dinner party instead. And so we sanitize, we strip our sharing because we fear bias. And if we can do a better job within organizations of interrupting bias, more of us will feel free to be who we are. But then we too own the responsibility of interrupting the internalization of bias. That's one thing. And then the second thing I'll mention is I did not know back then that I thought if I tell you that this is who I really am and this is how I grew up, you won't like me more and you'll take your love away. So I put out this really curated, plastic, perfect sense of this is who I am. And what I didn't realize is that curated sense was actually really off-putting for a lot of people. And the more I reveal my vulnerable self and show you my insecurities and tell you that, yeah, the costume may look good, but I feel effed up a lot of the times, and I'm just a girl bumbling through life trying to do my best, the more I have found that it resonates with people and they're drawn to me, and I create way better relationships. I wish I knew that then, but I know it now, and I'm sharing this with you as something to think about as well.
So being your authentic self has not only made you feel better, but it's drawn people towards you.
1,000%. It truly is the greatest gift I've given myself.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I want to shift to Sarah, and I know equality is a central value of yours, and you have put a lot behind that in the launching of Trailhead, Salesforce's online learning platform, a free online learning platform. And can you tell us what inspired that and the Trailhead and what is that thought behind that and how it matches the authenticity that you bring?
Yes, Andrea, and just what amazing stories already. I'm just so humbled already just listening to the stories about how important it is to be authentic. And yes, I believe wholeheartedly in equality and that we are all building the future together and that we need to build an ethical and equitable world for everyone. And one of those places where it starts is with education. We as a technology industry have created incredible opportunity in the world, and we've created incredible professions that are very lucrative. And unfortunately, though, they can be inaccessible to many for many reasons. One of them is because it's hard to maybe go to college or to pay for the college to learn the skills, or somebody may think, oh, I'm not qualified to learn that, or I might not live in the place where that opportunity is. So there's barrier after barrier after barrier that people face in being able to pursue incredible careers. And you combine that with the fact that in the technology industry, it's embarrassing what our ratios are in comparison to what the regular population is when you walk out in the street and go to the grocery store. And so myself and the team and everybody here at Salesforce and our community are bound by this mission and passion and purpose that we must, tear down these barriers. And so Trailhead was a way to do that, to make learning accessible to all, tearing down the barrier from the, no matter who you are, no matter your race, gender, socioeconomic situation, your location, your level of ability, your sexual orientation, I don't care who you are empowered to come learn in-demand skills that lead to incredible careers where you can earn resume-worthy credentials and be connected to incredible opportunities. So this was a mission that the team came behind, and a personal part of that was that also I found my own personal success at Salesforce. I started at this company as a senior manager, and I went from senior manager to director to senior director to vice president to senior vice president to now an EVP and general manager because I was bound by that purpose and mission with the team. And so that's just a little bit about it. But yes, it's so important to lean into your purpose and passion and authentically go into that mission together.
Awesome. Yeah, and the one thing I love about what the Trailhead team has done in featuring a lot of the trailblazers is that you see our trailblazers like being their authentic selves, like from all walks of life, and it really shines through their passion for what they're doing in their careers, and Trailhead has helped them build that, so it's pretty inspiring. I wanted to come back to Gail and talk a little bit about an internship you had. While you were attending Spelman, you had an internship at Chase Manhattan Bank headquarters in New York City. So you mentioned you were in banking a little bit. How did that opportunity influence your perception of corporate culture, and specifically how women of color are treated in it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's a broader point here, which is I was in a program that exposed minority students to the financial world. And so we were brought in, wined and dined. We met David Rockefeller. But for me, coming from Ohio, for whom Spelman was a stepping stone, this was another stepping stone. So it's all about exposure. I was exposed to other kids who were in college who were from Ivies. And so suddenly my world got bigger. And so when we think about the programs, and I know Salesforce has tons of programs, other companies do, it's all about taking someone who's got potential and exposing them. So what the Chase experience did for me was really open the guise of what my world could be and where I could work, what I could do, and it had me actually determining that I'm just like everybody else in this room. I can apply to Harvard Business School, and I did it. But coming out of Ohio, that wasn't even on the map. It wasn't something that I thought about. It wasn't something that I thought I was capable of. All we need to do is get in the room, and once we're in the room, we'll take it from there. But so many kids, so many of our youth don't have that exposure. So I'm a real advocate of any kind of program that brings kids and exposes them to what's possible. You give them that, and they'll take it from there.
It's so important because if you can't see it, you can't imagine
be it.
You can't be it. You can't imagine yourself doing it.
Right.
Yeah, you don't even know it exists if you can't see it. So that's fantastic. Ritu, we were talking about this out there in the green room, and it's about advice that senior colleagues give to people of color and indigenous people, and how that differs from the advice they might give to someone from a majority culture, and how can we change that? How can we change that so everyone's getting the feedback they need to succeed?
Mm-hmm. So I'm sure that this will resonate for many people who are watching today. It certainly was my story that when I had senior leaders take an interest in me when I was young and wanted to mentor and sponsor me, unfortunately, a lot of the feedback and advocacy that I received was about how, as a woman, I should behave more like a man, or how, as a person of color, I should conform to more of a white or Anglo normative. And of course, I did it because this is how they got ahead, and I could see around me, this is how people get ahead, and it helped me to get ahead. But it left me feeling spiritually vacant and empty because I wasn't being me. And this is exactly what the research shows. I co-authored a research paper called The Sponsor Effect Canada, where we took a look at advocacy and support sponsorship for people of color, women and Indigenous peoples, and then intersectionality. And what we found is that sponsorship is largely given to men and white men. But when women of color, and then intersectionality, women of color receive, Indigenous women receive sponsorship and advocacy, it actually is tied back to conforming to a white male normative. And so so I don't think leaders mean to do it. I think it's mostly unconscious. This is how I get ahead. You should get ahead by being just like me. And it reflects cultural and unconscious biases. And so one of the things that I think it's so important, especially for the leaders who are watching today, to be thinking about is when you are in fact sponsoring and advocating mentoring across lines of difference, make sure that you're doing this in a way that's inclusive. So you're not pushing conformity, but you're pushing authenticity. And if it is that you want your protege or your mentee to adjust their behavior, that when you give that free feedback, you make sure that it's extremely narrow, it's transparent, and it's framed in the positive. Because the problem with constantly receiving feedback to conform based on a white male normative when you're in a corporate culture is that it's relentless, it's exhausting. It's the change how you speak, change how you dress, don't share what you do on the weekends, read sports headlines, learn how to play golf, which I did for a minute, and I was like, that is so effing boring. Why am I doing that in the first place? But this is, and then we just, you literally feel like you can't breathe, you can't exhale. And so as leaders, again, with your hands on the lever of power and privilege, you can have a really powerful impact in transforming people's lives. But the way in which you make that happen is by making sure that you're not coaching for conformity, you're coaching for authenticity and inclusion.
Yeah, yeah. And Gail said something really interesting to me also before this, that when you are holding in your brain a little bit of that, like, how do I conform? It's part of your brain that you can't use elsewhere.
Can't access it for your work.
Right, right.
Exactly. And that's actually what the neuroscience says as well, that when we're constantly consciously and unconsciously in our heads around, do I be this way, do I not be this way, we take away brain power from actually performing at a high level and shining and accessing our thinking brain properly.
Yeah. Gail, do you want to say more about that and the challenges of leading authentically?
Yes, and I'm going to lean into this one a little bit because this is a passion of mine. So many of you may remember Scandal and Olivia Pope and Papa Pope saying to Olivia that you've got to be 110%. If you're going to succeed in this game, you've got to do more, you've got to exceed. It was the 110% quote that we all remember. So a lot of us live our lives that way. You've got to be better, you've got to do better. And I know it was part of the vernacular in my family to exceed, to do more, have it buttoned up, do your job. But it comes at a cost, because you take all of that energy into an environment where people don't have the same pressure and you're too much. So suddenly you're too aggressive, or you're overbearing, or oh my God, there's too much energy, and people end up being intimidated. So the calculus that you're doing in your brain constantly of, I need to be more, I need to do better. Oh boy, I'm intimidating, I better dial that down, means that there is this constant back and forth in your own brain that does detract from your ability to be effective. And so how do you deal with that? So first of all, you accept it. You know that you were raised in a culture of achievement. You know that there are others who could find that off-putting, and so you find your center. And we were talking a little bit about my own necklace and my focus on mindfulness and being centered and saying, I understand that, I understand this is who I am, this is how I'm going to present myself in the world. But it's really important to be conscious of that, and I've been coached. It really does take sometimes an advisor to talk to about these things, to take lots of self-assessment tests and sort of understand what this means for you and how you want to show up in the world. But it is not an automatic. You don't walk into a room as a white male would saying, I'm clear on who I am. There's a lot of navigating and a lot of sort of calculating that we're always doing, but it's an ongoing struggle. It's just a part of what we do, and I think it's what makes life interesting.
Yeah. I think the gift of feedback and mentorship can really help with that. And Sarah, I would love to know from you, because you've had an incredible career here, who has been an influential role model, advisor, or mentor that has helped you get to where you are today, and how have they helped you?
So first off, let me say that I am very fortunate to have had many mentors and champions and people that I have looked up to along the way. And they span between, men and women. And what is also, I think, important to say is that we tend to talk about people up above, like, oh, this like fancy person up here that I really aspire to be. But I've also learned a lot from people around me and together with me. And I find that some of the most important thing is that the people that are really truth tellers to me, the people that have been able to say, hey, Sarah, I think that's a great idea, but maybe that's not your strength. And you should maybe look at things this other way. But, a lot of people, like Layla Secca, for example, is an incredible woman who's like, along with Cindy Robbins, championed equal pay. And Amy Weaver, who's here, who's an incredible woman and leader at our company, Molly Ford, Ebony. I can list yourself, you've been here for 20 years, I think, started the company, like kind of a big deal. Along with others too. But so, the point is, like, I can list a lot of people that have helped me. But one of the most impactful things was when actually there were people that were champions of mine, and they lended their own privilege to me. They gave me that exposure. They had the confidence in themselves to say, you know what, I'm okay stepping aside and letting her be exposed and have people there to see me instead of them thinking like I need to always be in the spotlight. And that's something that if you are a leader that are looking to really lead authentically and how to help others, I would highly encourage that you do that. You look at what privilege you have, what stage you have, and how you can give it to others, because we just as a people need to help others, succeed. And so I'm very grateful that I've had incredible people in my life and have these three wonderful ladies with me here today that are inspiring to me. And so I'm going on a little bit long, but just the net is that I'm very fortunate and grateful to have had many. And I hope all of you watching will ask yourselves, like, what 10 people maybe can I help do that for? Because we really need to have a multiplier effect in how we're helping get more women and underrepresented minorities in positions of power and leadership.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And someone saw that potential in you, and Ritu, in your work around diversity and inclusion, how can we ensure that women of color and people of color, Indigenous women, are being seen as having that potential and as potential leaders, and encourage others to give them the type of sponsorship that Sarah has enjoyed?
So it's the answer on the surface sounds quite simple, but it is more complex, which is that people as individuals must own their biases. The problem is that we are first of all hardwired to gravitate towards sameness, and we're also hardwired to categorize people based on data we intake about them from the environment, and then we hold these beliefs in these filing cabinets in our brains, and it's on this basis that we treat people. So we're hardwired to do it. In addition, we are socially conditioned to do it. And when I say socially conditioned, from the moment that a child is born, and actually even in vitro, we are conditioning our children to believe certain normatives. And by the way, these normatives we've inherited over centuries and centuries. For example, race, science was invented by white Europeans hundreds of years ago as a way to justify land theft, genocide, enslavement, imperialism, and more, and was then entrenched into every system and structure that we have in society today. And we're born into these systems and structures, and we don't even realize that we've been conditioned, that we hold forms of supremacy in our bodies and minds. So each of us must own how we are doing this. It is the only way that we can create collective change, when individuals shift behavior by owning our biases. It sounds very simple, it's very complicated to do, but it is a must do.
Awesome. That's important work and not easy. We only have a very short amount of time left, so I'm going to have each of you in 30 seconds or less tell me, what is the single most powerful way in which we can all lead with authenticity? Gail?
I would say signal to your teams that it's okay to bring your authentic selves to work. And you do that by modeling. You do it by being yourself. All of the people on my team follow me on social media. They see me doing SoulCycle on the weekends. I mean, there is a seamlessness between who you are and the work that you do. And if you model that behavior, your team will start to feel more comfortable with it. And it's a basis for getting to know each other beyond the workplace.
Ritu?
So one of the most important things I have learned through my own journey and in doing this work is that the reason why we hate on others is because we lack self-love. But the reason why we lack self-love is because others hate on us. And so the greatest gift that you can give yourself in tandem with authenticity, and actually authenticity, it is an act of self-love. When you unconditionally accept who you are, not only will you start to thrive as an individual, but the piece that I care about the most is that this is how systems disruption happens. If we are on the ground, we are not thriving for ourselves or collectively. When we thrive individually and then collectively as communities, like for example, as women, when we start to thrive collectively, that's when we start to disrupt gender supremacy at a higher level. So give yourself the gift of self-love. And on that note, I have a lot of stuff online at ritubhasin.com on how do you make this happen. I wish I knew then what I now know.
Awesome. Sarah?
So maybe similar, but mine is to, my advice to lead authentically is to know who you actually are. So, and what your values are. We go through exercises here. My core values are integrity, courage, and well-being. And it takes a lot of introspection to know who you are. Just if I were to say I was an extrovert, I would be lying. I'm actually an introvert. And so I need to own that and know that and communicate that. And because if you show up to work trying to pretend to be something that you think you are, and you're not, people will know. And so have a truth teller in your repertoire of people that you can say, is this who I really am? And they can say, no, actually, that is not who you are. And just accept it, but know who you are would be my advice.
All right, this has been inspiring, and I'm so honored to have been with the three of you on this panel. So thank you very much, and that's a wrap for this one. We've got more to come, though.